love all the bottles in back of you.
This is where I live. These are my angels,
Right.
choirs of angels. What I'm introducing today is what I've been figuring out for the last 44 years, how to heal. Because I was diagnosed with glaucoma in my last year of optometry school. The prognosis was with the best treatment, I was still going to go blind in my 40s. Not accepting what the textbooks say, that things can't be prevented and are irreversible. I was like, I don't believe it. I came from a family involved in natural healing, and we just knew. That's sales for drugs and surgery. So I went into the field for vision rehabilitation, and I knew that would involve stroke and head trauma rehabilitation, as well as functional vision improvement for learning disabilities. That's what my dad was a leader in. So that immediately made me expand my vision of what I would be doing to include prevention and reversal of blinding eye diseases, glaucoma, macular degeneration, cataracts, dry eye, which is the leading cause of blindness in Africa. And so I started researching and writing my books on those topics and just published them internally within my clinic and used them with patients. Eventually in 2012, I better get these out to the world now. Future medicine will be the medicine of frequencies. Albert Einstein was pretty smart. He didn't get everything right. He knew that at the end of his life. He questioned a lot of his ideas. And in my clinical theory of everything, I recognized that he made mistakes. Albert could foresee that everything is frequencies. Ultimately, matter is energy. E equals mc squared. Energy and mass, protons and electrons, atoms, chemistry. When we look at it closely enough, there's no thing there. There's a field. There's energy. And that has resonance and frequencies. Everything in the chemistry lab, we know what things are by their frequencies that they resonate at. So this is going to be involved in expanding our view from the culture that we've been mostly raised in, which thinks of things as the essential aspect of nature, the material stuff, materialism, materialist medicine, expanding that to understand energy and frequency. And even the next step beyond that, because really it's all consciousness at the foundation. And that's how the body works. That's how it controls growth and development and healing from the top down, from consciousness controlling the energy frequencies, like communication, like what I'm doing right now. Consciousness is expressing thoughts and ideas, images through frequencies of voice. You're hearing the frequencies of voice and hopefully converting those into some pictures that make sense of what I'm saying. And then I have slides to help. So you're taking in visual frequencies, like the color of light that he's shining there. It's a healing frequency for the eyes in syntonic optometry. All right, let's see what frequencies can do for healing. Here's one of the two most powerful healing tools. This is a mat you sit or lie on 15 minutes twice a day. This is showing circulation, the close-up of a blood vessel before, during, and after a 15-minute treatment with electromagnetic frequencies. You don't feel them other than it's very relaxing. You might fall asleep. Can you imagine the difference in nutrition brought to your tissues? How much detoxification, how much oxygenation? That's one of two therapies in accelerated self-healing that can prevent the need for surgery to amputate a leg when it's turned black with gangrene. Can you imagine? Either one of them alone. The other is healing water. I call it living water, ionized water, a Japanese technology. My first office was in Tokyo. They use it in the hospitals. They prescribe it for chronic illness, for aging-related illness. And so 8% of the homes had this water technology. This PEMF is new in the last 20 years. I gave them input. They incorporated in the new version where you can set it for what terrain the body is in, for low energy terrain, cleansing terrain. They even use several of the same names for the terrains that I use in my clinical theory. But it's essential technology for maximum healing. We help a lot of people who can't necessarily afford to implement all those technologies, and they get great results. But if we're stuck, we're going to start talking about what else you should add to what you're doing. Let's increase the circulation by 30%, which is how much we lose in 40 years of aging. Think of the difference in the amount of health problems between age 40 and age 80. That's the difference it makes. So we're talking about accelerated self-healing. We're starting our certification program. It's going to be an ongoing program. We'll go on a 12-week cycle of live classes. We'll do live Q&A and implementation classes. How do I apply this to myself? How do I apply this to my family member? How do I apply this to this challenging patient that I have in my clinic? And we'll all learn from each other. My father, one of the first things he told me when I became the medical director at his learning disabilities clinic in New York after being in Tokyo, he said, you haven't learned everything. You have a license. The state says, you passed the test, you can practice, but that doesn't mean you know everything. If you want to learn the rest, listen to your patients and they will teach you because they're closest to the problem. It's the opposite of what's often taught in medical school. Don't listen to your patients. They're not medically trained. They'll throw you off. Okay? I don't buy it. And a lot of people aren't buying it. Gandhi observed, the more doctors there are in an area, the more disease there is. Why? Because he's talking about modern medicine. Treating with drugs does not heal. Drugs and surgery don't heal. They manipulate the body from outside. Healing comes from inside, comes from the intelligence in the mind controlling our actions based on our understanding. And the intelligence in the body that controls the actual healing. And we know that even the mind part of that is 50% of the effect of healing, the placebo effect. And if you expect harm, the nocebo effect, just as harmful as any toxin, the placebo, just as healing as any medicine that's truly healing. So this was an article in Science Times, breakthroughs in reversing blinding eye disease lead to a new theory of everything. Because my mind is not just interested, okay, we're in the business of healing, so don't worry about other things like cosmology or quantum energy, but it's all one universe. If we understand how it works, we understand how this works. If we don't understand the quantum world and don't understand the cosmos that we're part of, then we don't understand everything about who we are and how we function, what our superpowers of healing should be. So here's part of the new theory of everything. How about a clinical theory of everything means that it's relevant to life and healing. Most theories of everything are relevant to mathematicians and physicists who love math and chalkboards. And the rest of us look at it and say, I have no idea what you're talking about. They talk about particles, the fundamental particles of the universe, right? And what they're talking about is taking two angels of creation, of matter, two protons, and putting so much energy into them that when they smash them together, they disintegrate, and there's little ripples for a fraction of a nanosecond, microsecond, a tiny little ripple of a wave of energy, and they say that's a particle. And they put names on those, and they look at the patterns, and they say that's what protons are made of. It's not relevant to healing. In that terrain, in that energetic environment, we're dead. There is no biological life. Not possible. So not relevant healing. At the same time, that doesn't mean that we're not interested in the very small. I want to know how protons and electrons work and photons. The interaction in the body is all protons, electrons, and photons. Very few quarks coming from proton angels that are having their feathers scattered that we can see for a fraction of a second. But they get big budget to look at that. There's very little budget for what we're doing. We have to fund it ourselves. But way below the level of the quantum of the proton, photon, and electron, which is the stuff of biology, is the Planck. The fundamental unit in physics is the Planck. It's so many orders of magnitude smaller than the atom. My conclusion from my studies, it's a unit of consciousness. It's not a thing. It's certainly, we're not going to call it a particle. It's not separate things. It's the background. It's the canvas on which matter and energy are painted. It's how matter can be separated and still entangled, quantum entanglement. How our thoughts, how I can test you at a distance. You're in India, you give me a 10-second voice sample on the internet, and computers analyze the frequencies in that and look at the pattern of frequencies and how that relates to different functions in the body, organs, tissues, terrains, systems, meridians, energetic circuits in the body. And then I can take that information and I'm visualizing you with your photograph, and I'm thinking of you and your history and your symptoms. And I become quantum entangled with you. I become you. I'm a surrogate for you. Surrogate testing first came from moms and babies. Moms are natural empaths. So if we're testing, I started with electrodermal testing the acupuncture points electronically. And if we're testing mom and the baby is asleep across the room, we see a pattern of energy and responses. We're communicating with the intelligence of mom's body about mom. But as soon as baby's awake, and now baby's in her lap, and we don't do a dermal testing poking baby's acupuncture points. It's hard. They don't want to sit still. They probably cry, but they'll sit there in mom's lap while we poke mom's points. And we see an entirely different pattern of stress responses, of remedy responses, clear those stress patterns, and it relates to what's happening for the baby. And then usually wind up giving the remedies to mom too, and baby gets it through the breast milk. This picture is illustrating how things are connected. It shows the chakras, and it shows the 5 elements of Oriental medicine, the other side of the mountains that are connected to the meridians, the electrical circuits. The chakras are the photonic, the light emission from the body. In ancient times, when the energy of the earth in the cosmos was different, new heavens and earth in scripture. And that happens every 6,000 years, every 12,000, every 24,000 years. There's a cycle. Our home here is oscillating above and below the plane of the galaxy. And when it goes through that galactic plane, there's a change in polarity. Modern science always seems to make the easy error of, well, this is how things are. We can measure them. So given that this is how things are, we assume that they've always been this way and always will be this way. No, that's wrong. That's an assumption. Most scientific errors of how we think things are based on that assumption of extrapolation from, I know this, I can measure this, therefore I know everything. We don't know everything. So light and electricity are two of the trinity of this existence, right? The protons, the electrons, the photons. And now we've figured out the connection between the photons and the electrons from the most advanced ancient medical systems that have been around for so many thousands of years, Ayurveda, TCM, Oriental medicine, all on the same map. Instead of, well, now, okay, they thought this and these people thought that. And yeah, but those are systems that have worked for as long as we have cultural knowledge, and they still work. And they're working on the same system. So it's like different languages talking about the same body. This little circle down here in the thorax and abdomen shows what I've mapped out of the 5 elements of consciousness. So now we're going to bring consciousness into it, which is, again, that's the higher level above the matter, energy, the matter, the energy, the consciousness, the cycle of consciousness. We'll get to talk about it a lot in the training course. But we have sensation, our sensory world, that's not, as modern brain science says, the sky is inside the skull, because they can measure electrical activity in the visual cortex, and that's all they can really easily measure. But in visual science, we measure the visual projection of space, of the image we see in space, and we do see it out there. We don't see it in here, we see it out there. It's projected from the cyclopean eye. That's not part of the anatomy of the biological bodysuit. It's part of the anatomy of the spiritual body. And it moves when we do vision therapy to get the 2 eyes working better together. It moves toward the center. Consciousness and light and electricity and the material body are all fundamental. We need to not ignore any of them. There could be an issue, a problem that's coming from one of those areas affecting the other areas. We think in medicine about psychosomatic. Yeah, the mind affects the body. It's psychosomatic. What about somatopsychic? If your body is stressed, if your liver's stressed, it's going to affect your mind. You're going to be angry. Okay. So here's one of my 80 plus websites where I introduce some of my mentors. And there's a long page of dozens and dozens more I intend to add there. But when I have time and the motivation, the inspiration, like I've got to tell you about one of them. It's like, okay, I'm going to put their page up so I can send you the link. Here's the introduction. Yeah. So body, mind, and spirit, and clinical theory and praxis. And that's really what the course is going to go through. The first week is about the body, which we've been talking about contextually. The mind, consciousness, the spirit. Oh, is there really a spirit? Yeah. If there's no spirit in the body, it's flatlined. The body's dead. Oh, and then they start the heart, and then the spirit comes back in the body. And then there's electricity in the body again. The spirit is superconductive. It's super fluid. It's ghostly. It's a non-ordinary state of matter. So we have to understand the different aspects of matter. Why is this needed? In conventional medicine, what do? We take a blood test. We measure 10, 20, 30 different chemicals in the blood. And then we're waiting for 3 weeks for the results. And then we have to look at it and figure out what we think, what the left brain part of the mind that can process 120 bits of information a second based on our 8+ years of training. I think this thing, this intervention, this remedy, this solution will improve measurements. And then we wait for a month to see what the results are, called a clinical trial. It's slow. You get experience. In 10 years, you're an experienced clinician. Your intuition improves about what's going to work, because you get more data, more experience. With biofeedback, what I call biocommunication, where we're measuring the body's energy, we're really communicating with the intelligence in the body in real time. And we can try that first idea. I think this will work. And the body said, no change, no response. It's not the thing that I can use, not the thing I'm looking for. We might try 9 things that don't work and then try one that's, oh, look at that. I put this herb or this homeopathic or this frequency in the body field, and suddenly the entire flow of energy in the meridians changes. It adapts, adjusts to its environment. So what they say in Europe, where that system comes from, they say, doctor doing that is getting so much more feedback so quickly, ruling out 9 things out of 10 that day instead of trying one of them and getting feedback a month later. They have an equivalent experience, a year of clinical experience in 1 month, or 10 years in 1 year. So that means I'm equivalent of over 400 years old, but I think I don't look a day over 300. Oh. And the labs test, a few dozen things out of the 10,000 things, the next slide, the 10,000 things in physiology, 10,000 chemicals, and it's only measuring it in the blood. So it doesn't tell you what's happening in a neuron or in a hepatocyte in the liver. So practitioners tend to feel stuck or uncertain. They're having to over-rely on these external tools, and that could cost thousands of dollars if you're really trying to dive deep. And people in functional medicine do a great job with that, but it's still limited. You can't measure everything, or like the protons in the lab in Switzerland, you have to destroy something in order to get information. It's the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. If we measure it, it changes it. We want to measure it subtly. It still changes, but it's a healing change. When we do an energetic test, a biofield analysis, we have many people report healing at the time that we did the test. And they didn't know what our schedule was going to be. So I approached this from a systems model, because the living system is a self-regulated system. It's self-organizing, self-regulated. It heals itself. It has all of the information. And the body intelligence, the whole spirit, processes millions of bits of information every second, compared to the logical mind that can reason, rationally think out, okay, I'm going to tell my patient which prescription drug is right for you. It's kind of a joke because it doesn't heal. The actual name for that form of medicine is allopathic medicine, which means a different disease. And in medical training, we call it managing the symptoms of disease. Because when you introduce a new disease, a drug, you change the symptoms. We're managing the symptoms. We're not talking about healing here. So systems model, the context is all important. That's the field we're in. What about in the last 10 years, we're all exposed to over a quadrillion times more man-made electromagnetic frequency fields. Those are stress fields. When I made my first book public in the 80s, Electromagnetic Pollution Solutions, we didn't have Wi-Fi, we didn't have cell phones. Still, I learned from my mentors, about 1 out of 3 people don't heal to their potential until we clear the context of the energy field that they're in. We live in an environment that's so removed from nature, which is where the real medicine comes from, whether it's energetic in the Schumann field of the earth by walking on the beach or the organically grown grass with dew on it and connecting to the earth, which is, I call it the largest antioxidant, is negatively charged, 20, 30, 40 minutes connected to the earth electrically. You're actually pulling electrons from the earth into the body. It takes some time. We can do that in our modern lifestyle by putting magnesium sulfate, Epsom salts in the shower and plugging the drain. So we're standing in an electrically conductive fluid that's connected to the metal pipes of the house, if they have metal pipes, not PVC. So the more we are aware of the context and how important it is, like the leading blinding eye disease today, macular degeneration, didn't exist until we had processed food, until we had manufactured food. Parts of the world that are so remote where they have no processed food, there's no ship to bring in canned food or refined sugar or white rice or any of that, the disease doesn't exist. And we truly have the blind leading the blind if the healers don't know why people are going blind and they're saying, well, there's nothing you can do about that. The textbooks literally say it's irreversible. And we have some treatments that maybe can slow it down for some people. But even 40 years ago, I had my first patient who was blind already, who regained functional vision. You'll see that case in a moment. The old way is we got to measure enough of this to figure out what we think's happening and then think through what we think's going to make that better. Take the example of blood pressure. A study in England found that the doctors all thought that patients were healthier because the blood pressure medication lowered their high blood pressure. If you have the same blood pressure as a healthy person, does it mean you're healthy? Or does it mean you took a toxin that suppressed heart function so it can't make a high pressure? That measurement is good for pharmaceutical sales because you say, oh, we can sell this. We tell them it lowers blood pressure. And see, blood pressure is associated with these health consequences. And now we're assuming that putting in a toxin to stop your heart from functioning well, which now your blood can't get filtered and cleaned by the kidneys as well as it's trying to. And that's the reason the pressure's high. Yeah. The new way is, this is the intelligence, the energy field. And again, it's regulated by the consciousness as well. This is a leaf that's been cut. There is no leaf here. What is it that's showing on a Kirlian photograph? There's a field. There's an energy field. The spirit of that is undivided. We can divide the leaf, but we can't cut off the finger of your soul. And there's still a phantom limb there, and people experience that. So we want to talk to this part, not just cut off a piece of the leaf and measure the chlorophyll level, the magnesium level, because the spirit knows all of that. It knows how to heal. It's already figured out what it needs to do to heal. It's missing some key healing frequencies or materials or information. And that's what we're going to ask to find out, what is it that you need? What can you use to heal faster, to heal at optimum speed? Like when in medicine, they document 3,000 cases of spontaneous remission. Cancer clears typically in 3 days, sometimes takes more, but often 3 days with a high fever, a bacterial infection. Now, if we're looking at things piecemeal, materially, we say, there's an infection. Oh, we have antibiotics for that. We can kill the bacteria and lower the fever. And guess what? Then the cancer doesn't heal. How many people have cancer that hasn't been diagnosed? It's like 1 out of 2 people get cancer in our culture. So every time you take antibiotics, you're stopping your ability to prevent and heal cancer. Better solution is probiotics. Before we get sick, before we manifest disease and symptoms, we lose the microbiome. We have less healthy, less diverse microbiome in the gut and elsewhere. So we want to talk to the intelligent part. It's smarter than any doctor. It will teach us. Here's a Harvard-trained retinologist who's seen multiple cases that I've worked with where people were blind or going blind. This will be on the site and you can read all that. But he had never seen that, never heard of it. He described how the scar tissue in the retina is clearing. Not only the inflammation and the bleeding has stopped. And these are people who said, I know I can heal myself. I got this book from Dr. Swartwout, and I'm going to take the things in there, or I'm going to have him select the remedies for me based on my energy. 2 different cases here. And in both cases, they healed tremendously. And this, again, was 40 years ago. I realized I'm on the right track. And the textbooks are wrong. I've proven the textbooks wrong. They don't change the textbooks because it's a belief. The belief that something's impossible, how could you prove that? What evidence would support that? It's evidence-free. There cannot be evidence of impossibility. Maybe something's impossible, but it's a belief. It's an idea. All you can do is prove that it's possible with 1 case. And I've got a lifetime of cases. So what's the difference between healing and degeneration? Here's normal. See, those are mitochondria. And here's mitochondria that are not moving. That's the difference between energetic terrain of health and a low-level terrain where there's not enough energy fields to push viruses away from a cell or to repair degeneration in real time or to heal cancer. So we want to train you in a method that cuts through the complexity of that. Even if you're an expert in that, you still don't know it all and you can't measure it all in the body. But energetically, you can communicate with the intelligence without labs that take thousands of dollars and weeks to get the results before you can do something. I want to have confidence that in the most complex and confusing case where all the doctors say, you have something going on, we can see that, but we have no clue what's causing it. The body will tell us. It's not confused. It's challenged. It might be confused for a few minutes. I once tested a woman. Her body was confused. I couldn't get any responses energetically with the meridians. I said, have you done anything unusual this morning before you came in for your first test here? Said, well, I know I was coming in to go on a health kick. So I joined a fitness club. And I went to my first workout right before I drove here. Said, okay, that's what's going on. Your body is now figuring out what to do about that. It's calculating. It's spinning on your computer. It's spinning, it's thinking. And so I learned from my mentor at the time, here's what we do. Here's a glass of water. Sit, relax for half an hour, and then we test again, and then our body had figured it out. It's pretty quick, given the amount of information it had to process when you haven't exercised in 40 years. We want to access the body's innate intelligence. That's where the answers are. Instantaneous answers, even if you're on the other side of the world like Mona. And we want science-based answers that make sense, that are real, that we can look at how we understand that from a scientific perspective. We're going to have to expand our scientific thinking beyond what the refereed journals will talk about, because they won't talk about what happens in a live sample of blood that you look at over hours and days and weeks. They won't talk about the relationship of the cosmos life. The cosmos is life. It's living. We're cells in God's body. They won't talk about the below the quantum, and maybe they'll talk about the quantum level. So here's a basic outline. Once we get through the first 3 weeks of body, mind, and spirit, we go into specific aspects, key dimensions of healing. What about the context of your family? What kind of issues did your father, mother, your grandparents, have they experienced? Is that related to what you're experiencing? Or is that something that you want to avoid because you saw how challenging it was for them? We can change the trajectory, have specific systems for that. What about past health issues? Oh, ever since I had hepatitis 20 years ago, I know my liver hasn't been back to 100%. So accumulated damage from the past. Oh, I have a scar in my brain. My vision's not working right since I hit my head in that car accident. Well, we can go back and dissolve that scar and allow the flow of information and energy and fluids in the brain. So we can heal the past damage. It's called retracing in homeopathy. We tend to heal the present issues. If you finish that to-do list, they say, oh, what else do I feel? Oh, yeah, I was going to do that project last month. It's over here under the stack of things. Oh, the stack's gone. I cleared the stack. Oh, it's on top now. We deal with epigenetic stress, the memory at a DNA level of past stresses, which is how we inherit patterns in the family as well. But the current pattern of gene activity and suppression, we can turn on the healthy genes, turn off the stress genes, because we'll hold on to stresses. It's like ever since that trauma as a child, I have this reaction, secondary reaction when I hear certain sounds, when I see certain things, when I have certain thoughts. We can clear all that past damage and the anchors we carry from the past. That's what the body is about. It's from the past, and it carries that memory embedded in it from the past, but we can free ourselves up to have more flexibility, more health, more freedom in life. Then there's the present, which is the mind, which transcends the present. We can remember the past, we can think about and plan the future, but it's really centered in the present moment. We have symptoms. This is what I'm seeing, feeling, hearing, thinking. We have diagnoses, what the doctor is seeing, hearing, feeling, thinking about us and seeing in diagnostic tests. And in the core, understanding all that is the terrain, the biophysics, the energy patterns of the body. Is it in the low energy terrain where you have viral issues and degeneration and cancer? Is it in the next level, I call phase 2 rejuvenation, where there's aging, there's damage? It's not in viral terrain yet, but it's not as functional, useful as it could be. And that's where bacterial infection happens. That's where parasites find room because our enzymes aren't working. So their enzymes of the bacteria and the parasites can come in and they find food. We're leaving food on the table. We're feeding them. Fungi will grow in phase 3, the next level up. They break down carbohydrates. They break down dead matter, help to clear the space. We need to clear the space if we're going to regenerate. That's regenerative terrain. If there's a bunch of junk stored, we can't regenerate new cells. There's no room for it. And there's not quite enough energy getting through. Cleansing terrain, where we're cleaning out, getting stuff out through the blood, through the lymph. And that's often very symptomatic. We feel things when they're moving in the blood, not so much when they're stored away in some fat tissue and a lipoma over here. Mercury, it's fat soluble, store it in that lipoma and it's growing. Then we take care of the dental problem where it's coming from, a cracked tooth with a big amalgam filling, and these lipoma are growing. This was a colleague of mine 40 years ago, former football player, strong guy, but when he started, every time he'd exercise, he'd be flat on his back, be in the hospital. It's like, what's happening? Oh, he'd start burning off that toxic fat and releasing mercury into his bloodstream. We identified there's a cracked tooth, which means lots of mercury getting his body from there. Took care of that and supporting mercury detox. And the lipoma, which is a benign tumor, just a storage depot for toxic fats, went away. The different treatment levels, we want to avoid surgery and suppression with drugs. In the middle, level 3, substitution therapy, like hormone replacement therapy. Well, if you do a high dose, it's like a drug. If you do a low dose, it's more like homeopathy or support, and then you're giving a little support to the adrenals and they can repair. But over a certain low dosage level, it tends to suppress. So that's the cutoff between things that don't make us well and the things that do make us well. Then we have nutritional types of support therapies and stimulation, energy, frequencies, and homeopathy, where the real healing is the body's activity. Some people are in a low state, really missing certain key building blocks, nutrients, elements in the body, and the support is essential. It's a sign of health when all they need is some drops in their water to activate certain genes for health, and they need some homeopathy or essences for energetic regulation, get the energy flowing the right way. That's great. This next one is regulation. I'm calling it responsibility. It's a play on words. You're responsible for your own healing, but what if your health is stuck and you try everything and nothing works? That's the lowest level of regulation. It's blocked regulation. And then it takes really good support and really good guidance to get out of that, to clear the detoxification pathways, to get the cellular energy production going again. It can take months to do that. And then you start cleansing and then stuff's moving and then you feel it and you have negative regulation. You feel worse before you feel better. Just like the woman who got the subscription to the health club, she didn't feel better from exercising hard before the session. She exercised hard enough. Her body was, oh my goodness, we got to do something different than we've been doing about this. You might have some aches after that first workout. It doesn't mean it's not therapeutic. And the final thing is prognosis. We had a woman who was told, well, because you had leukemia before and you have it again, it's recurrent, chemotherapy doesn't work, so I won't prescribe anything. I could prescribe it legally, but it won't help, so I won't do that. You have 3 months to live. You go home and get your things in order. I don't need to see you again. Now, she was a holistic healer herself, and she had healed the first round of leukemia herself with natural therapies, so she wasn't buying his prognosis. Otherwise, most people who believe a negative prognosis fulfill it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If the doctor believes there's nothing you can do, and you believe the doctor, how much are you going to do? What are you going to try? Nothing. And your cells are getting that information from your consciousness. We're going to die in 3 months. And people often die on the day of the prognosis. It's remarkable how powerful we are to heal or not heal. So we turn that prognosis around. In 3 months, she went in for a blood test and she was in complete remission. And this is years ago, and we still work with her. She's a psychologist and works with our remedies. This is one of the maps I've made of the terrains. We want to be in balance. And what throws us off balance? First tendency is stress. We live in a stress time, stress culture, and chronic stress doesn't give us a chance to take a vacation and clean out the effects of that stress. When we test toxins in human tissue on a material level, 50% of them are from stress, from neurotransmitters and hormones of stress. Because we're stressed all the time, it's piling up in archaeology. We got to dig down through those piles, but that's often the first major thing. We need to cleanse. If we can't cleanse, we start reacting to things that aren't self. We have allergy, which means energy. It's lifelike energy working hard to detoxify. And when those not self molecules get to a certain level, they're toxic. Even too much water would be toxic. Very few things are totally non-toxic. Molecular hydrogen is about the only one. Electrons, maybe. Well, no, you could get electrocuted. Here's a dose. And you'll learn how that process works from health to chronic degenerative disease and the healing in reverse, back to balance. And it's a dynamic thing. It's not one size fits all. It's not, oh, I'm in phase 5. I'll never, ever experience these phases, or every cell in my body is in the same biophysical terrain. No, there's maybe a weak area that's in phase 1. While the body as a whole is cleansing. And phase 1 and 4 are both cleansing terrains. Phase 2 and 3 are rebuilding. 1 and 2 are inside the cell. 3 and 4 are working outside the cell. And 5 has to do with the consciousness. So it's transdimensional. It's across space and time as far as the mind is going. And so that's why these circles also represent that the spirit, and we could do another one out here. The spirit is always part of what's going on in any biophysical terrain, any of the 4. And I know it needs lots more explanation, which is why we're doing a 12-week course. But that's 1 week. We're going to really dive into that. But they all relate. So we'll be talking about it in the other ones. If we look at a case, we're going to look at what's the terrain? What are the symptoms? What's the diagnosis? What's the history, right? What's happening with the epigenetics, the voice scan? The full program will have live and recorded sessions. For starters, this first 12-week, it's going to be mostly live, but I have some recorded videos that will certainly point you to or pull into the course. We have a real-world case library at the moment of 44 years of what I've been doing. We'll have interactive practice sessions where you bring in your own situation or a family member or a client, a patient. You'll have lifetime access. The value is at least a lot. It's really priceless because not only you can apply this to your own life, but to the people you love, and then helping other people. If that's a career you're looking for as a coach, if you're not a health practitioner, if you are a doctor or other health practitioner, it's something you can add to your practice that's going to transform what you can do for the people who currently make doctors depressed. They watch people decline. All they can do is manage their symptoms while they get worse, and they're actually getting worse faster because of the way the symptoms are being managed. If you have a symptom, you can manage it by suppressing it, adding a new disease, or you can manage it by supporting the body to heal quickly and move on. Like headache from aspirin. We know aspirin takes a headache away today, but the research shows it increases future headaches. So you're going to take more aspirin. And all those aspirins are increasing the risk for blindness from macular degeneration and other bleeding-related diseases. This is Dr. Wiley up in Washington State. In the eye, we can actually see the tissue. We can see the retina, the lens, and he's describing how he's seeing healing of the tissue, physical changes in the eye that the textbooks say don't happen. And he's really happy about that. It makes him excited to see what kind of problems come into the office rather than, oh, somebody came in with a problem. You have compassion. You want to help them. You help them while they lose their vision, but he's seeing vision come back. You'll have access to tools to help with the process, how to evaluate the energetics of the body rather than having to take a blood sample and wait for 3 weeks and pay for a blood sample. You have no cost to these voice scans. How to recognize patterns in the symptoms. If symptoms change, did they change because the body's healing, or did they change because something's a problem, they're getting sicker? So how to interpret that, very, very important. Magnetic positioning is that people will find you. There's lots of people looking for answers. They know their spirit is from the future. They know that there's something out there. They're looking for it. And when they find you, they're going to be very grateful. And we'll do weekly Q&A, live sessions, and specific case studies to solve the challenging cases, which is where we learn the most. Okay, next, we'll have bonuses. We're going to create whatever we need to make these systems work for you in the situation that you're applying them. Again, a health educator, a health coach, a health practitioner, or self-healing. Me, I want to understand it all. If I could have found this course 40 years ago, I would have been right there. I was going to every holistic health seminar in New York, New England, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. So here's a map of the last part of the course, the last 9 weeks. We've talked through that. The total value, it's priceless. The value is at least the cost of being blind for a year, which is estimated at $24,000 a year as of a few years ago. That's not including the loss of quality of life, just the material costs. Loss of health is the number one reason that people lose their savings, their retirement, they lose their house, they lose everything. So special price right now for the first 12 people would be $3,000. And the basic outline, clinical theory of everything, body, mind, and spirit, first 3 weeks. And then the past, the next 3 weeks, and the real-time understanding of health, navigating that to change course, and finally the future health, how we're going to treat and how the body responds. And what we're creating as a prognosis, not accepting a negative prognosis, creating our own prognosis, our own placebo effect that's using the mind for half of our healing potential. Here's one of the websites. This is public information you can access. We'll be using that as I use it in my practice. If I have somebody on a test is showing me, okay, there's this kind of stress pattern on the voice analysis, I'm going to send them to the right page here that describes it more without them having to study German new medicine. It's healing 80-90% of cancers without anything invasive, just clearing past traumas in the mind, and we can clear the past traumas in the body with biological medicine. I'll send them to the page there and they can read about it and say, oh, interesting, it connects to my dry eye symptoms based on the part of the brain that's showing stress. So organizing the information is a huge help. Another website where I organize information is Clinical Praxis. That was clinicaltheory.com, clinicalpraxis.com. Go through the different types of therapies, the main ones, and other protocols. How many people have mercury in their mouth? That's what was killing me when I was 25. I was losing my vision. At 30, I found out that was why. And that it was going to kill me in my 30s. I would have died of a stroke before I turned 40. And so because I was healing myself, I learned how to prevent that. The best thing about prevention is never even knowing what could have happened. But I knew what could have happened. It was very motivational to learn everything I possibly could and implement. So I'll send people here for particular understanding, deeper understanding of a certain therapy or approach or treatment. This is an OCT, a computer tomography, a computer image of the retina, a cross-section of the retina. These bumps are drusen. That's the first physical change in macular degeneration. This is the macula, center of vision. So vision gets distorted, and it's the leading cause of blindness. It leads to destruction, growth of blood vessels, leakage, scar tissue. This is dry stage. So this is 6 months ago. And then we saw the change after 6 months of doing all these things I'm talking about intensively. And I used AI to make it into a video. So it makes it more fun to watch. You can see the biggest one in the center is almost gone, and the others are reduced. This is for you if you're tired of superficial results. If you want to help clients transform faster, better. If you want to blend intuition and evidence, or if you're ready to become a leader in healing, it's where science and soul collaborate in the future of healing. If you're ready to be part of it, here's a QR code, a link. This is one way. You can contact us directly, email, phone, acceleratedselfhealing.com. You can go there and set up an appointment on the calendar to talk about if this is something that's right for you. Because if you're here mainly for healing yourself, this may not be the level you're looking to go into, but you may want to understand it. So you're coming to the free introduction, perfectly good. But if it is something that you're looking to understand at a level where you can guide other people through it as a coach, or if you're a health practitioner, this is something to consider.
The personalized case review.
Here's one of the bonuses, $1,000 value. Let's say you're a health practitioner and you have a challenging case. You want me to go over with you how I'm going to analyze it, come up with the therapies, matching remedies that you can implement. I can't do that for 100 people. We can fit 100 people in the course. If it's 12, I'm happy for the first time around, but I won't be able to do that for an unlimited number of folks. And that can be applied to yourself, a family member, a dear friend, a patient. Everybody learns from everybody's questions. That's why the group setting is so great. And on the platform, we'll have a community for communication. We'll have a chat group for each course. So we're talking about specifically this set of ideas. And great, let's talk about that. Go ahead.
For this methodology to affect change in a person's physiology, does that person need to believe in this method?
They need to believe in themselves to get the full potential of their healing. We know the reason that there's controlled studies, double-blind studies and other controlled studies in medicine is you can't tell what's happening unless you do that because, for example, pain relievers, even an opiate, half of the power to reduce pain when you take an opiate is the expectation, the mind reducing the pain, and half is a chemical effect. Half is chemical effect bubbling up, affecting the consciousness, and the other half is the consciousness trickling down and affecting the chemistry. So yeah, to get maximum results. And that's why I talk to my clients. When I have somebody new, I talk about the possibility that you could go through a cleansing reaction. Something might happen where you feel worse before you feel better. Some old symptom might reappear, usually for a shorter time and then clear. So when we talk about that ahead of time and what that means, now we're pre-framing for the mind and the spirit to be on board that program and realize, I want to hear about it so I can guide you through with minimum stress, maximum speed, maximum healing results. Young man who was having severe panic attacks. We tested, it was mainly his kidneys. They were toxic. The kidneys had to cleanse. Kidneys and adrenals are not even separate things in Oriental medicine. So he gets the remedies, he understands the process, but he calls me and he says, I'm having this intense fear. It's not fear of something. It's unformed fear, we call it in psychology. I'm having this unformed fear. What do I do? He wanted my support, which is why I'd say, let me know so we can help you through those hard times. So you don't make a choice that puts you back where you were. We want to move forward and heal. And so I said, these are remedies for your kidneys. They're dissolving toxins and moving them out. While they're moving, you feel the kidneys. What's the feeling of the kidneys? Fear. You're feeling your kidneys because they're cleansing. And that's what's going to clear this pattern, this cycle that you have. And he said that made all the difference. In the past, he would have that feeling and he'd immediately start thinking, oh no, this is the beginning of a panic attack. I'm going to have a panic attack. I'm afraid of having a panic attack. I'm feeling fear and I'm fearing the fear, which is more fear. And now I feel more fear. So I am having a panic attack. Right? And so with this knowledge, he said, knowing that I can just relax to a degree, I can relax with this feeling, be with it, and I can handle it. And he was able to get through that healing crisis. We call it a healing crisis. If you read literature from 150 years ago, talk about healing crises. Oh, people either lived or died in a healing crisis. Most people 150 years ago died of a bacterial infection, phase 2 terrain, bacterial terrain, high fever, and then the fever breaks and better. Or high fever, they don't make it, right? So we live longer now on average because we started killing the bacteria in the water with a poison, with chlorine. So we don't die of bacterial infection when we're younger, but we die with chronic degenerative suffering when we're older because the chlorine is toxic. It kills bacteria. Well, what makes energy in our cells? Isn't it bacteria? It's called mitochondria. It's called the second immune system, but it's the first line of defense in the body is the microbiome. The thousands of species of bacteria we're supposed to have in our gut. More cells of bacteria body than human cells. It was part of our ecosystem, part of our context. Were there any parts that you'd love to understand better? How consciousness works, how the mind and the body interact, how we see the stars out there. How do we get information? How do we get meaning out of what we see? Project an image from the spirit that's in the brain area, in the mind. It projects that image that we see. That's all you. That's all your spirit that's creating that light that you see. Because your spirit's centered in the body. It's anchored in the body, but it's universal. And so you see real light out there that's visual, that's perceptual, that's you. That image is you. When they do studies on remote viewing and remote healing, you can measure the energetic effects of the person visualizing that animal or that box and what's in the box and drawing a picture of it. There's energy changes 3,000 miles away when they're doing that, when they're seeing it, when they're healing that. So we're connected. I've calculated the amount of energy in that field based on putting together several different studies, none of which you'll see in refereed journals, but real studies. Dr. McDougall, 100 years ago, measured the mass of the soul when the person died, how much their weight decreased in an instant, and then slowly over about an hour, hour and a half. It's not evaporation. It's not a material thing. It's the spirit body leaving. And then in alchemy, patents that show how the minerals of the soul are 5/9 present as mass and 4/9 are in the field, are non-local. That 4/9, and there's also a study of brain tissue that shows how much of those minerals is in the brain. A normal chemistry lab, they don't even write down how much there is, the unknown. You can't measure non-ordinary materials with ordinary materials. It's like, can I measure the spirit with the body? No, but the spirit can measure the body, right? That's how it's more subtle. So the amount of energy in your consciousness field that's transcendent space and time, it sees the stars, it's making the image of the stars, it's remembering the past and connected to that, and it's foreseeing future and guiding and choosing and having free will to navigate that. If you take the amount of energy that was released, the bomb at Hiroshima, multiply it times 6. That's the amount of energy that's that field. Now, what we do with that is not fundamentally destructive energy like Hiroshima, where we're releasing this energy and it's not regulated. No, it's regulated by intelligence, conscious and unconscious. But we can learn to use that powerfully to heal ourselves, heal others.
I'm curious about how you will hold the sessions and when and how long will this go on?
I've got the main presentation scheduled on Thursdays. I'm likely to move it later in the day based on feedback from people who are joining, because people on the East Coast, West Coast practitioners, they're busy during the day. So we'll try to make it after hours. If it's 5 o'clock on the West Coast, 2 hours difference would be 3 o'clock here. So I'll probably move it to 3 o'clock Hawaii time. I'll get input from the group when they start. I'm planning to do a second session during the week. It'll continue to be interactive, case-based, problem solving, question and answer, maybe have one on Thursday, one on the weekend. It's to be determined by the group, but they'll all be recorded and available. So it's lifetime access. Some people want to listen a couple times. I have it scheduled for 4 rounds this year. We go 12 weeks, a week off, 12 weeks, a week off, 12 weeks, a week off, etc.
I was just wondering, how do we learn how to make those, or where you buy the ingredients and all of that?
Yeah, I have a naturopath who's very interested in that as well. She's using our products and she's just amazed, and she wants to make her own remedies. She's already gotten some ingredients from us. I like being responsive to the needs of people. That's why I do this. My formulation process is evolving. I've been doing it for 44 years, formulating for individuals. For 30 years, I've been selecting formulas for companies and that kind of thing, but creating my own formulas for the last 10 years. And that's what you see behind me. I'm happy to share that knowledge, that process. I'm planning to offer a course in that. So we'll go into some basics and you'd have access to ingredients through us. 10 years ago when we decided we need to make our own remedies. We got to start collecting. We've got 500 different ingredients here, herbs and nutrients, and we're looking for the most concentrated, cleanest, the most bioavailable active forms we can get. If you're looking for formulating something that it's not in my 150 formulations, we could work together to create a new formulation for that and add it to what we're doing here. I have a medical doctor sleep specialist I met a few weeks ago on the mainland at a conference and happened to have a sample of our brain cleanse, which is a sleep formula that cleans the brain while you're sleeping and the retina. And because he's thinking about creating a formula for sleep for his problem patients, and he's already tried it and said, yeah, it works great. So he could private label that with our formula, or I could work with him to develop his own unique formula in his label. We have a contract manufacturer, the only one in the States that can make them to our standards. We're planning to begin outsourcing the manufacture. Right now, they're all made in small batches by hand here in Hawaii. So I can update and upgrade the formulation each time I make a batch. And I'm doing a lot of that now because with the assistance of AI, I can crunch a lot more information than my little left brain, even though it was measured at an IQ of 186 plus when I was a kid. Still, I can use Elon Musk's help with Grok. It's doing a good job of telling me what are the most effective natural powder ingredients that I can put in a capsule that help increase circulation in the brain, or whatever the question is. Rate them 1 to 10 based on the evidence and the research. Are there multiple human clinical trials that show how much improvement do you get? And it's a lower rating, like, well, there's a few case reports of this. And then what's the dosage range that works in those studies? It would take me a year to get that information on one product. Now I can do it every time I make a new batch of one of the products that we have that are working great, working better than what was on the market before, but we want to make them as effective as possible with the minimum dose. Who wants to take 40 capsules and tablets a day? That's what I was doing before I learned electroacupuncture. I really value open source information. There's nothing more annoying to a clinician and researcher than finding a solution and not being able to find out about it. What's in it? What's the ratios? So I love sharing the details.
We're going to be new. We're just learning. I don't know the time frame that normally you'd need to have practice clients. Wouldn't you to get to understand the path to feel fluid and comfortable? But once, say you're helping somebody and we need support in supporting that client healing path, how do we navigate if we had a question that we got stuck that we wanted to run by you?
That's exactly why I'm planning the ongoing access and the interactive sessions. Maybe you finish the 12 weeks, and so you're implementing parts of it that, okay, I see where I can use this for myself or my family member, and then you'll get a little comfortable with that, and you'll say, and I have this patient in my office I just know really needs this, is going to help. I really want to know what their voice scan looks like, first of all. And then I want to talk to Dr. Glen about what he thinks about this. Maybe I want to refer them. I had an optometrist who's just retiring, but is still doing a health center, and they're using our remedies and have been working with us for years. They were on the session on Saturday, different slides, different presentation, but for the same purpose. And at the end of it, they were just talking a little bit, and they say, oh, by the way, we're referring you a patient who has a blinding eye disease, night blindness. So watch for this person. Here's the name. So yeah, I'm here for you. I'm here at whatever level you need, as long as I can be. When we start outsourcing the products, I'm going to be busy with a company that's growing. I'll be the visionary of that. And there's more healing tools I want to develop. We've got a soft laser that's amazing. We've got a client who's using that on her eyes with the eyes closed, and it stopped working. And she said, can I order 2? Because I don't want to ever be without that. Just bringing her vision back. But more healing tools, the more research that'll take to do. But to me, the practitioners, like I have been, that's the front line. And we can't do any of this. We can't expand. We can't put product on the market without having more practitioners using the products on the front line, so that when we make, instead of 40 bottles, we're going to be making 6,000 bottles or 2,500 bottles, depending powder or capsule. So now we need a bunch of practitioners. We'll start with 12, and then we'll have videos that are already done. We can expand, maybe do 100 practitioners the next round. And then we have some leverage when we manufacture that first product to say, okay, we're making this. Now we need to get it on the shelf at where 125,000 functional medicine practitioners tell their patients what to get without having to keep it on the shelf and ship it. They can say, I'm putting this in your program on FullScript. You can go there and order it, and they'll notify you when you should be running out if you're taking it regularly. And here's your reorder. Every company that makes professional quality products wants to be there. So every new product that they make, they're telling FullScript, put this in your inventory. They can only take about 10% of those. So we have to get over that initial challenge. Just like enzymes take the energy that's needed for a reaction to happen and make it less by 75% on average. And by doing that, you get millions of times more reactions happening. Because think of it like a high jump. If the high jump is 12 feet tall, not so many people can get over it. But if you make the high jump, let's see, 25% of that, 3 feet tall, oh, I can get over that. So we need that leverage for the things we're dealing with, like macular degeneration, blinding eye. The health practitioners are where people get the recommendations that they follow for those products that aren't working as well. And so we need doctors to know, here's something that actually works. You're going to love it, like the short video, seeing healing in the retina, clearing of the lens and cataract. That's a transformation of the doctor's experience that they're going to love. Instead of having to refer those people out for surgical treatment and drug treatment, and then seeing them back, if they see them back, they usually do, and following them, and they're not getting better. Maybe they're getting worse slowly or fast, but this can turn that around in so many cases. So support is key.
So beyond the 12 weeks, are you saying you're going to have weekly meetings 2 times a week, ongoing?
Yes.
Like ongoing, like for years?
Ongoing. So when we get started this week, and maybe I have 2 people there, but we're recording it and I'm editing it and I'm putting it on the website in this course, if the next weekend somebody contacts me and says, I really want to get into that, didn't have time, I couldn't get to the start, when can I start? It's like, start now. We're in week 2. You can go and catch up on week 1 on what we went over on the website, and you'll still be able to be here for the live week 1 in 3 months in March. It'll be beginning of April, as many times as you want. It's something that I've learned from people that I'm learning with for artificial intelligence, because in that field, everything changes. If I study with them for 3 months, and even get a certification, 3 months later, that's out of date. I need to be listening to somebody who knows what's happening now. New therapies come out. We come up with new remedies. We're going to learn a lot from the people that we're working with, from their cases, from the doctors. That's where I've learned, like my dad said, we learn by listening to your patients. So we're going to learn together, and it's an ongoing process. It's what I would want. It's what I do want. I don't want to just sell you a course. I want to open a world, a community together where we can help each other. I won't always be here, but hopefully when I'm gone, there'll still be good education. Talking to the doctor who's referring to night blindness, he was sharing with me about a new light therapy that he's been using on some people for the eyes and how it's really helping them. I didn't even, get the name of it, but I said, I would love for you to come on and share that with the group when we get a group happening. Let's put all of our heads together. What we know in our conscious mind is still limited. However much we know, I think we know, there's always more to learn. And there's always a new therapy I hadn't heard of. I want to know about it. And I'm sure other people will want to know too. I've learned a lot from this doctor. Brilliant mind, very, very insightful and creative, and just exactly the kind of person that I want to see in our community to share his knowledge while he's still around. If this is something that you're thinking of, that you think might be a good direction for you, acceleratedselfhealing.com has a short video. Use that QR code or that link, and you can watch the video if you want, or just schedule a half-hour appointment on a schedule there. We're having to implement a lot to do this. Just contact me. We can set up a time to talk about what's the right support system for you right now of learning about health and technology and medicine and healing, and what is it you're doing as far as healing yourself and others around you in a broader community of patients, and what kind of technologies do you have, and what's your budget for adding technologies to your practice. We've got $50,000 in software to do voice analysis and biofeedback and energetic testing of the biofield that we can do through the internet. We can share that with other practitioners. You can buy your own version and own it yourself. You can buy our software that's built on their platform or lease it. We'll work out solutions. To me, there's no shortage of solutions. There's a shortage of ideation, of thinking outside the box. Like, what else might work? What else can we figure out? What's the root cause? What is the outcome that we're looking for? How do we get from point A to point B? And if we're trying a solution that should work, there's some blockage, what can help us bypass that blockage or dissolve the blockage? But in medicine, there's never a guarantee that this thing works 100% of the time on everybody in the same way, because we're all different. Even with the same diagnosis, that's just a name. It's a category. It's a category of symptoms and signs. So it's an effect that's being named. But to fundamentally change the effect, we can't just treat the effect. That's resisting and making it persist. What we resist persists. We're treating hypertension or high cholesterol or headaches for the rest of our life because we're never healing the cause. We're trying to change the outcome. We need to look upstream and say, where's this coming from? Coming from the past? Coming from consciousness, our mind, stress? Coming from even ideas of the future, the prognosis that, oh, I have this disease. That's a weight. That's a stress on the mind, and that's a stress on the body. So many of the things in conventional medicine just make it harder to heal, harder to stay well. Transform those obstacles into building blocks. Okay, you have a bad prognosis? Create your own prognosis. Do you believe that? Do you believe the doctor really knows? Are they that spiritual that they know the future? What does your soul tell you? What does your intuition tell you? The people that'll find you for healing and want help are the ones that don't believe that. I know there's something I can do. Mona found me from India. It's not easy for us to work with somebody in India. We have to figure out a solution because we can't handle shipping to other countries. So we figured out, oh, there's shipping companies that we can ship to in the States that don't charge you like a monthly fee, only when they have a package to send you, and they handle the customs forms. We're in the transformational solutions business.
I don't have a professional practice. I've done wellness counseling for decades for people needing some help myself for a variety of things. Even though I feel better at 65 than I did at 25, I could use some help. And as I'm remembering how fabulous you are and how I want to go back for treatments and things with you, I'm thinking, oh, would this be a better investment for me to learn in these 12 weeks and be reminded of the spiritual, the different layers? Or would I be better off investing in specific treatments with you over more time than the 12 weeks?
Yeah, so it's a challenge. Which path is better? So my solution for that is, let's make that one in the same path, where you're going to invest $3,000 in the course, and we'll give you $3,000 credit for individual services and products. And at the same time, you're learning more how this works and how to self-regulate, how to heal yourself and others. I'm helping you become a better health coach, health counselor, right? To help more people, which is my mission. Now, we have stuff that we know works. We know there's millions. There's no shortage of people who need help, and even no shortage of people who are looking for help, the way I'd be helping you for those intensive 3 months of the course. And then you have access as well beyond that. And with certification, you'll be documenting how you're helping other people. right? That's part of my idea of the certification is to implement. The certification is about implementation. That whether it's implementing with yourself, and here's my observations, here's what I did, here's what happened, here's my case study of this particular aspect of the course. There's 12 parts of it. They could do a project, a homework project on each one. It could be a video that you make about your experience with a certain remedy or a certain program. That becomes an asset for you as a business person. The biggest asset to help you reach more people is to have videos and stories that people can look at and say, oh my goodness, I want that. Or I can relate to that. Oh, I like her. She understands where I'm coming from and there's nobody to talk to. That helps us reach more people. We need to expand our network beyond what I can do. I've always been, I have to do it all myself. I'm very particular. When I was doing regular eye exams, they weren't regular eye exams. I would take an hour and a half for an eye exam and it'd be explaining to the patient what's happening with their vision, what it means, and what we can do about it. When people get glasses, on average, 1 out of 3 people have to go back to the doctor and say, I can't wear these. And they have to redo them. If I had one person say that every 2-3 years, that's probably a little less than that. So less than 1%, way less. Why? Because I took the time, and that's how my mind works. I want to really understand the whole picture. I can't do that for the whole world, but I can teach some people more about what I've learned, what I've gleaned. It's taken me 44 years to learn the gems, the pearls, and support you in the questions that come up for you, which I'm going to learn as much from as well. It's like, oh, here's a new question. Somebody today, a woman called and she and her husband are going to get evaluated. They have some eye issues, but the big concern is his energy will just suddenly drop through the floor and he's got to lie down for half an hour. And oh, I'm really interested. You got my attention. Like the cataract. Yeah, we can help with that. But this, I'm going to learn something. I don't know. Is it pancreas? Is it blood sugar? Is it liver? Liver keeps the blood sugar up. In the process of being open to the truth and seeing what is exactly happening for him right now, I'm going to learn some things that I didn't anticipate. It's like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought of that, but now I can. Where do ideas come from? Experiencing something different than what we've done in the past. If I have a protocol for everybody, okay, we're going to heal the eyes. Here's the eye healing protocol. You take this supplement 3 times a day, put these drops in, do these ices. That could all be good things. Maybe it's even good for everybody. None of it's even harmful, but is it going to optimize their potential for superpower healing to reverse a year of aging and degeneration in 1 month? And again, the next month? Nobody needs the same thing month 2 that they need month 1. So we need a way to listen. And I don't want to go in and have a blood test every month and spend $3,000 and still have to use my logic and my knowledge and AI and another doctor to say, what do you think should we do? Should I take this? We're going to have to make adjustments, maybe the dosage. I have a woman who's in a wheelchair and she can barely move a couple fingers. She needs some people to put her on the toilet or put her in the bed. She can't swallow. It takes her 2 hours to barely eat a meal. She can't swallow capsules. Oh, how am I going to help her? Most of my formulas are in capsules. Take it out of the capsule as a powder, take a tiny pinch, minimum dose, because she's very sensitive. Autoimmune issues affecting the nervous system, but we start at the level where she's at and support her through any challenges. And it's probably going to take some time, but I have people who have gotten out of wheelchairs and, we had to be carried up the stairs here when I saw them. And the last time they came, they showed me how they could walk even without the cane. Usually we'll work with people intensively for a while when they have serious issues. And then they're doing well enough that they're on their own. We just heard from a relative who had referred a relative who was in really bad shape years and years ago, worked with her for 2 or 3 years, got her out of the darkness. And just haven't heard from her. Now we heard from her relative who had referred her and asked, by the way, how's she doing? She said, oh, ever since she worked with you, she's fine. Her health is good. But she's in her 90s now. We want to get the system back to where it's self-healing, self-regulating. The information is flowing. When you're in a healthier state of regulation, when you do something that's good for you, you feel better. The healthy, fit person says, exercise. I feel so good when I exercise. The person who hasn't exercised in 30 years and decides they need to go on a health kick, exercises for half an hour and says, I was going to go for an hour, but I can't do it. And the next morning, I can't get up. But with time, with the right direction, the right guidance, the right support, that all changes. We can heal the regulatory status from blocked, like nothing works, to, now it's starting to work and I feel it. It feels like heck, but I get through it, especially with guidance and support. And now I get to where I'm feeling some movement that I don't like, but I see some other things that are improving. I'm sleeping better. My energy is better. My thinking is clear. My vision's improving, but I'm still having weird smelling stools and strange color to the ear. There's stuff coming out that has been piling up for years. So those are kind of distinctions that we need in mixed regulation, where the question is, you have some symptoms that are better and some that are worse. If the worst symptoms are moving down and out of your body, that's good. And if the things that are getting better are more up and in, consciousness, sleep, energy, brain, eyes, that's a good sign. Symptoms. Not only what are great natural therapies, anybody have a symptom that they're like, what would be a remedy for a particular symptom? But also when those symptoms change. Am I better or am I worse? I could feel worse and be getting better. I could feel better and worse, and I'm not sure. I want to be sure. Once you're sure that you're going the right direction, it's a whole lot less stressful having those stressful symptoms, right? So we're breaking the spin cycle of the mind and body, the minding body. The term minding body came from my father. When I was a kid, he was writing a paper and he asked me specifically what I thought of that. Does it make sense? What does it mean? And it's like, okay, thanks, Dad. I'll use that.
Another question. I was just looking on the website, remedymatch.com. I was just wondering, but do those work for anyone, even if they haven't gone through the assessment?
Yes.
But I thought it was personalized, right?
What I do is personalized. I want to follow my oath to first do no harm. So if something is potentially going to do harm, we want to have a caveat. We want to say, for example, with the soft laser, number one, close your eyes when you're using it where you can see the red. You don't see the infrared light, and the eye focuses that and could make too much energy in the retina if you're holding it in one spot. But through the closed eyes, it's diffusing that light and the infrared, and it's super healing. And also be very cautious using it around the thyroid. The thyroid builds up more mercury than any other tissue. So many people have had mercury exposure from amalgams or other sources, eating lots of tuna fish as a kid or many different ways. And around the gut also, there's a caution for infrared therapies, for intensive infrared therapies. So anybody can buy that laser. It's publicly available, but we have the education about that on the page for it. Now, as a certified coach or practitioner, you can have access to those remedies and tools, the tools that we make at a practitioner price. So it can be part of what sustains you, what feeds you and your family by helping other people to heal.
I understand about the laser, but even all the pills.
There's a couple of them that have, if you read the page, they'll give you some cautions. Most of them would be essentially safe for anyone of some symptoms. They're very active. They're very energetic. So if you're not exercising, you might feel it. It might not feel good. They might not all be perfect resonance for you. But for example, there's one that blocks the growth of new blood vessels. Okay, that's important in wet macular degeneration because there's leakage of those new blood vessels in the back of the eye. It's important in diabetic retinopathy. Very similar. It's important in cancer because new blood vessels are caused to grow the tumor, and that's part of reducing that tendency. But if you have a cut, an injury, and you need to grow new blood vessels to heal, then you don't want to take that at that time. So that's part of the caution. This is an intense remedy. If you get injured and you're having to form scar tissue, wound healing, then just go off it while that's happening. If you have a surgery, go off it for that. The way for reducing scar tissue is similar, although I just learned from some top mentors that if you're concerned about scar tissue forming from surgery, they'll use it before, during, and after the surgery. Somebody forms keloids, excessive scar tissue. I might tell anybody going through surgery, you can use this. Naturopaths and medical doctors who do really good healing work will use this with clients before, during, and after surgery. You might want to check with your surgeon, get their opinion too. But I didn't know that. I knew that there was a caution, so I gave people the caution. But now we know there's a therapeutic use even during active wound healing, not just after the scab falls off or the surgeon says, okay, you're good, I don't need to see you again. For the blood vessel growth, it might depend on the amount of healing that's, if it's a great big surgical scar and the person doesn't tend to form keloids, I'd say, you probably don't need that. You can allow yourself to heal. And when you feel it's pretty well healed or the surgeon releases you, then you can go back on it for the bleeding in the retina. When we're trying to heal the body, your body is stressed on these 5 different things that it's multitasking on. What if we can give it the support it needs on all 5 all at once? So now suddenly it can go through accelerated self-healing, heal all of those in a month or less. People do in spontaneous remission. When things line up and the body's able to heal cancer, it can be metastatic cancer throughout the body and it's gone in 3 days. And if they know that they're having a high 103 fever, oh good, it's not 101 fever, which would be viral, still low energy. Your body has enough energy to mount 103 fever. That's when spontaneous remission happens. And let's test during that, and let's keep your head cool and give all the proper support for maximum healing. What you'll see on the homepage, if you scroll down, is about 150 functional formulations, botanical nutritionals. There's a lot more on the site than that. And so in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little magnifying glass icon. Click on that. It opens up a little window. You type in laser or light or red or infrared or healing, pain. Type in a keyword or the name. You could put in harmony. You could put in laser. And it'll bring up a search page that'll show you a number of products that relate to that keyword. Oh, that's a harmony laser. Okay, click, and then you go to the page specifically on it. Cold laser, also called low-level laser therapy or photobiomodulation, is a non-invasive treatment that uses low-intensity red and near-infrared light to modulate cellular function, often for pain and tissue healing without heating or cutting tissue. It is widely used for musculoskeletal pain, wound, and skin applications, but clinical evidence is mixed and condition-specific. There's specific frequencies that are absorbed in the mitochondria and activate energy production. So any viral or chronic degenerative or cancer issue is in that low energy terrain where we need to reactivate the mitochondria.
I have no background in healthcare. In the process of healing, I'm trying to learn many new things. Never saw the scans of retina or studied those, or not aware of what all different kinds of eye-related disease happen, or even biologically in the body, the different organs and all of that. So then a person like me who goes for this kind of sessions of learning, accelerated self-healing, will I have to do a lot of background study and also raising the consciousness, like through meditation? Because here I see that it's the knowledge of health, biology, as well as the intuition. Both have to go hand in hand.
Great question. No, the whole point for me of what I'm doing is not to replace medical school, but to take people who don't know medicine or people who do know the sciences, connect it all together so that they can see the big picture, see how body, mind, and spirit are all part of this one life experience. They're very different types of functions, but they're all equally real. The spirit is more real than the body. The body's temporary. The spirit's immortal. The point for me, whether it's a doctor or a coach or somebody becoming a coach, the main thing is to be able to understand that big picture, the context of healing, of the human experience, of health and disease. The main thing would be to be able to communicate to the client or the patient, to give them the visions. They're the ones that are healing themselves. No matter how much I know or how good a communicator and coach and motivator I am, it's still that person that's healing themselves. And so what I need to impart to them is not, like in the course, we'll go through 10 different states of matter. We've all learned solid, liquid, and gas. There's 10 for the professional level training, but the system I would use for talking to the client is only 5. We can expand that for the scientists in the group to say, I've heard of plasma. I didn't know it's really 3 different states of plasma. I've heard of Bose-Einstein condensates, but I didn't hear about the spirit minerals that are patented, ORMs, orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, but they have similar function to the ones that won a Nobel Prize that I can accept that's real. I can see there's a patent on this, and how you describe it makes sense of how then vision can really be out there in space and how we can get meaning from it in the heart. And then the heart tells the rest of the body, including whether to run away or whether it's a friend. The big questions of science, from cosmology to the quantum and consciousness and healing, all get answered to the best answers I'm really happy with, because I don't see anybody else coming up with anything anywhere close. They relate in the clinic. They relate in the healing process. We can see how we can make that part of the healing. You're in a healing process. You're dedicated to that. You're already investing in that. So let's make access to this part of the process you're doing, whether you wind up using it for yourself and maybe a family member and then maybe a friend, or maybe you decide, this is really good. I'm going to spend more time helping people heal, maybe a little less time on computer screens, and then use my artistic design skills to help reach the world with these concepts. I need help with that. How do we illustrate these spirit minerals? I'm able to calculate how they work, and it's hard even with AI, or I've got Adobe Suite, but I'm not the most skilled with that. And so I do the best I can to illustrate it. But ultimately, one of my goals is, my vision, my prayer, dream is we get some people who make movies to put the real science that I'm discovering in the movies. It'll be so much better, more exciting than the fake science of science fiction. Stuff that's real is more fascinating. So looking forward to having you on board. The main setting appears to be a constant light. It's actually flashing on and off faster than the eye can see. It's a frequency that is the main frequency for the spirit minerals, for consciousness. And I found that in my own research, sitting one day on the floor with my Rife frequency generator, changing 1/10 of a hertz at a time and then 1 hertz at a time. I was contemplating the universe, thinking big thoughts, and all of a sudden, boom, I felt the effect. Was that my mind? Something happened. I think it was real, but you never know. I got to test it out. I was so excited that I felt something. Took a break, calmed down, breathed, came back, tested it again. I feel it. Tested 100 times. It's real. And searching for any reference to that frequency, 172 hertz, there was almost nothing until finally I found a database of frequencies that was very comprehensive. And they listed 172 hertz. One of the things it resonates with, one of its characteristics, it was called the dominant harmonic frequency of nature thousands of years ago in China and Tibet. It was their metric standard. It was a thing, probably a Tibetan bowl like the one we've made of that frequency that you can find on Remedy Match, that was more precious, more valuable than the emperor. The emperor is replaced generationally. That bowl they kept for 1,000 years, and it's known as 1,000 years of peace. So for 1,000 years, they tuned everything to a frequency that's harmonic, not disharmonic, with spirit. It was hard finding that 1,000 years of peace in history, because history is not about peace. It's about wars. It's about conflict. It's about the damage. But I found it. It's way back there. There's 1,000 years where there were no wars, no regime changes, there's nothing recorded. It's like there was just peace. How interesting. So I also have that available as a tuning fork. You can look up 172 hertz and find my websites on 172 hertz, 172hertz.com. When I was healing myself of early Alzheimer's about 15 years ago or so, I'd retired. I wasn't reading or writing anymore. I needed to get my body back for my mind to do more. So I took myself to the jungle. I lived in the jungle at our family farm here. And I had my tuning fork. 172 hertz tuning fork was one of my tools. In fact, it's a pretty major tool. I would practice remembering that frequency as a perfect pitch. Like we used to have a different music pitch that was the standard in the world. And then in modern times, they changed it to a more stressful frequency pattern for our music. If we had all our music based on this pitch, the world perhaps would be experiencing 1,000 years of peace. Maybe we will again. You can take the tuning fork, get it resonating, and then put the end of the fork on an area of the body so that frequency goes in a mechanical way. But what I found as a perfect pitch, I would spontaneously make as that memory would be either high or low if my energy was off. If I was a little excited, a little stressed, it would be a higher pitch. And if I was a little tired, fatigued, it would be a lower pitch. If I was right on the pitch, like, oh, good. A lot of times now when I check that, I was just slightly excited of things that are happening that we're doing. But it would usually be like a half note, a sharp or a flat, usually not that tiny bit off high or low, but sharp or flat, or a full note high or low, or 2 notes, or a third, or a fifth. Those were the main patterns that I observed. So I recommend that as an inexpensive energy biofeedback therapy, a way to tune your own frequency. It's the frequency of vision as well. It took me a while to realize that because we don't talk about it that way. We talk about the eyes have a microsaccadic movement. I did research back when I was in school with a group that was studying that. They could make that stabilize with a special contact lens and a mirrored system. They neutralize the eye movement and you'd be instantly blind. You can only see because your eyes actually jiggling at half of that 172, about 86 hertz. The range is like 90 to 100-ish. And we can measure that with EMG, measure the muscles of the eyes, how the electricity moves. End of that cycle, we're getting one visual image. Eyes move, another visual image. They move again. So 2 images per 86 hertz cycle. Half of 86 is right in the middle of the gamma frequency of the brain, of consciousness frequency. And if you take most of those estimates, it's about in the middle. Half of that is 21 and a half. That's right in the beta range of excitement, of activation, of attention. And half of that is right in the middle, 10 3/4, right in the middle of alpha, of relaxation, which is the resting rhythm of our skeletal muscles, the eye muscles and the body muscles.
A philosophical question. There are not a lot of people who understand or believe in the dual effect, the consciousness trickle down and the
Out of psychic and psychosomatic.
I don't know how you deal with that. And how do you argue with someone who believes that it's physical? Because if it's both ways, physical does help too. I mean, you take a pill or whatever, and it does help if I wanted to bring my daughter to you or something she's going through, if she doesn't believe it. So I don't even know how to bring someone who isn't already wanting it. I'm searching, I'm seeking, I'm finding, but she's not there with me.
I do know. Yeah, we all have family, relatives, friends, acquaintances, people we work with, whatever it is, that our model of the world, our beliefs of the world we live in, open possibilities or shut them. And from a healing perspective, we're not here to force anything on anyone. People may be wanting to do both. We have some people in that situation where they're doing chemotherapy, but they want natural support. It's like, okay, we can do that. We're not here to tell you you're wrong for the choices you've made or are making or are going to make. I'll share my opinion, my knowledge, but it's not to try to coerce anybody. The more open they are, the more they know, the better a candidate they are for something that's going to include those things that they're open to and believing in. If you don't believe in surgery and you don't ever want to have a needle or a knife enter your body, you're going to react to conventional medicine the way other people react to woo-woo. I don't want to associate myself in my own mind with that thing that I don't believe in. That's why one of my dreams, one of my goals is to get into movies. How do people's ideas about how the world is get updated, upgraded? How do they change? Education, good. Entertainment is probably the best way. One way is to inspire. If they see you making changes that they have to question, how did you do that? It's like, I want to have what she's having. What are you doing? And also why, to me, it's so important to understand the mechanisms, the science, to correct the scientific errors and say, you've been told that the universe just appeared from nothing. And because you learned that in science class, you believe it, right? So you believe in the miracle of creation of everything, but no miracles after that. Say, give me one miracle and I can explain cosmology. But that whole model actually is based on assumptions. And there's other models, other interpretations that actually fit data much better, explain much more, don't require creating ideas that there's no evidence for, like dark matter, dark energy. So I love talking to people who do understand science, and just not that I can force them to change their thinking, but expose them to some new ideas and see how they take it in. If they're ready, they'll be like, I'm going to check out that electric universe that you say makes more sense than the standard model of the cosmos that says we don't have any clue what dark energy and dark matter are. We have a big budget to look for it, and we get paid to teach it in universities. That's our business model to believe in that, but we're not making any progress on it. Or we're making a Hadron Collider with billions of dollars to kill protons that otherwise are immortal and call the little waveforms that come out for a fraction of a second things rather than evanescent patterns of energy, waveforms. Okay, well, they're getting paid to do that. It's the money that keeps the science controlled. Why is it that in biology you can't publish an observation looking at a microscope at a live blood? There have been at least 3 different major researchers have had to create their own terminology for what they see because they didn't know the other one existed. They created their own microscopes. They looked at the blood in the live state. They watched it for hours, sometimes days, and see how it changes. And their conclusions are that there's microbes that live in the blood that are part of us. Well, we know that's true in our cells. We have mitochondria. That's obvious. But there's fungi living inside our body. They actually provide the genetic, the DNA, the patterns, the blueprint for the shape of our neurons, the shape of our blood vessels. Oh, I never heard of that. Yeah, because you can't publish it in refereed journals. They have their own journal. There's 3 different fields that look at that. It begins to explain so much more. In standard biology, the view is that all animals are descended from fungi. Oh, if we're descended from fungi, how not terribly strange to think that we might have some fungal friends that are part of us, just like we have a bacterial friend that makes most of our 90% of the energy in our body, other than when we learn that light makes energy in our body. Infrared especially penetrates deeply and energizes the water and energizes the mitochondria. And then from a geological perspective, in 90% of Earth history, the Earth was 70 degrees from the North Pole to the South Pole. There was no ice. Earth was orbiting inside a red glowing sphere when Saturn was a star. And we look at human cultural history and we see the evidence that supports the changes in the cosmos, that things aren't always moving the same way throughout geological history. My hope is if we have somebody who hasn't been exposed to anything but what they see on mainstream media and mainstream schooling, there's plenty of food for thought. If you can grasp it, if you can be open to it, and not everybody is. Again, we can't force it. You can lead the horse to water. Can you make them drink? No, but if they drink, they'll be hooked. Here's an example. Most of the medical doctors that I've learned from that are researchers, thought leaders in the field, how did they get there? They were standard medical doctors. They had the standard training, the standard beliefs until they got deathly ill and nothing worked that they learned from school. They couldn't get their health back until finally they tried something. A friend suggested something. I said, well, what the heck? It's not going to kill me. I know it won't work, but I'll try it. And they take a homeopathic and they're like, holy moly, that works. If that, and it can't, according to my training, what else was I taught that isn't true? What else might work? And they start exploring and the whole world opens up. It's like, oh my goodness, I was trained to be a salesman for conventional Western allopathic pharmaceuticals, for patent medicine, for Rockefeller's creation of medicine. Before we had that, before there was licensing and you had to be a drug salesman, there were 5, 6 different schools of thought. Eclectic medicine said, well, we'll use patent medicine when it's the best thing, but not exclusively. Mostly we'll use herbs and homeopathy and we'll use whatever works. And there's homeopathic medicine and herbal medicine, naturopathic medicine, and chiropractic came in the late 1800s, and osteopathy, which gave up its traditions in order to get the money to sell the drugs. And now they're finding, oh, maybe we shouldn't have given that up, getting it back a little bit. In Germany, there's 5 different health professions that can treat cancer or anything else. Heilpraktikers are naturopaths with a 2-year professional training. They can treat cancer with herbs and homeopathy. There's several different schools of homeopathy. So how come we have a monopoly? Because it started here and it makes so much money that they give so much to the politicians. They control the legislatures and the governments. That's how they got licensing. And a license in law only exists when there's harm to be done. Why do we have licensing for marriage? That was regulated by the spiritual world, the church, the bans of marriage. People would let you know if, oh, actually that person's married to somebody else. They started licensing in the South after the Civil War for interracial marriages because they said, oh, there could be violence when people see a mixed couple. But when the camel gets his nose under the edge of the tent, eventually the whole camel is in there. Now, well, of course, everybody knows you have to have a state license to get married. That's not the ideal world. Whose business? Is it their business? Because there's harm. And now there's plenty of harm because you're going to have divorce and courts.
Somebody's asking in the chat if you have an idea for a movie script.
Oh, I would love to brainstorm with anybody thinking about that. It's more that when I watch a movie and there's bad science, there's wrong science, it really annoys me. And I think, wow, I'm coming up with scientific ideas. And if they were embedded in the context of a movie, if it deals with consciousness, if it deals with health, if it deals with mind and body, out of body experiences, near death, heaven, hell, my clinical theory of everything is a theory of everything.